Chris Canty, yesterday you sat in that seat right there, and I said, hey, listen, we're talking so much about the 49ers. We never even mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo. What gives? Well, last night, Jimmy Garoppolo heard probably everyone talking about how he perhaps didn't have a hand in the success of the Niners so far. How good are the Niners if Jimmy Garoppolo plays as well as he played last night?
Well, if he does what he did last night on a consistent basis, the 49ers are not only a team that's going to get to the postseason, but that's a team that can win some playoff games. I mean, he threw for a career-high 4 touchdown passes, was incredibly efficient last night.
Best game of the season.
Best game of the season. I mean, the 49ers offensively, after those first 2 drives, they got it going. They reeled off 3 straight touchdown drives to end the half. Got an assist from Cliff Kingsbury at the end of that, calling the timeout right there at the goal line on 4th and goal, and then they ended up getting stopped, and then they get another opportunity, and they punch it in. But, I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo was outstanding last night, and then you saw why John Lynch traded for Emmanuel Sanders, because he was otherworldly last night in his performance. Being able to go for over 100 yards receiving on 7 catches, I thought Shanahan did a great job in terms of his overall creativity and where he put Emmanuel Sanders, whether it was lining him up in stacks and bunches or putting him in the slot. He realized that Patrick Peterson was shadowing him in man coverage, and when you have a wide receiver in the slot, man-to-man, he's virtually impossible to guard because he's got a 3-way go. But overall, this 49ers offense is going to be really explosive if Jimmy Garoppolo plays the way that he did, and then you get the production from Emmanuel Sanders and George Kittle.
And if people wanted to, prior to last night's game, make an excuse or at least an explanation for Jimmy Garoppolo's rather pedestrian, if not below average stats, it would be, well, who are his weapons? Aside from George Kittle, who is an extraordinary tight end, I think most people believe one of the 2 best tight ends in football, he didn't have a reliable wide receiver. He appears to now have that in Emmanuel Sanders, and you saw the instant impact. He made a bigger impact yesterday than I thought he would make right out of the gate with a brand new team and a new offense, even if some of the principles are something he's used to. But to answer your question directly, Jenna, if Jimmy Garoppolo plays this well, this is the best team in football. Now, I don't know that he can continue playing this well, but when we look at within the NFC, the 3 best teams, record-wise and I think eye test-wise, Niners, Packers, Saints. Who has the best defense among the 3? The Niners.
49ers.
Who has the best running game among the 3? The 49ers. The question is, how much worse is the Niners' passing game than one with Drew Brees and one with Aaron Rodgers? And up until last night, the answer was a hell of a lot worse. So much worse that people were concerned, are the Niners going to follow a script that we're very familiar with, which is the great defense, limited quarterback, very good regular season, flame out in the playoff script? That was the script of the Chicago Bears last year. One could argue that was the script of the Jacksonville Jaguars a couple years ago. It was certainly the script of the Vikings in 2015, and damn near every Cincinnati Bengal playoff team that we'd seen during the Andy Dalton, Marvin Lewis era.
But is it that the offense isn't good enough, or is it that the jury's sort of still out on this quarterback? We just don't know how, because he hasn't really been tested,
well,
and the defense has really won their games.
Well, the defense and the running game. The offense, it's not that the offense, this wasn't the 2000 Ravens where you questioned all parts of their offense. This was a Niners team that could run the ball very, very well, and they had 9 touchdowns to 7 interceptions and a quarterback rating below average. Now, I don't think Jimmy G is going to be a 300-yard, 135 passer rating guy moving forward, but if he is just somewhere in the middle of where he was the first half of the year and where he was last night, that to me does elevate the Niners into the discussion right alongside, if not ahead of, the Packers and the Saints. I'm skeptical if this is duplicable against a better secondary and defense than what they have in Arizona. But if they can, then they check every single box of a championship caliber team.
Well, no, you're absolutely right, and that's what we're waiting to see, whether or not this offense can be as explosive against a better defense. I think the Arizona Cardinals defense is a low bar to clear in terms of being able to judge the overall performance of what Jimmy G and his team could do. But in looking at the 49ers, you got to love the fact that they've got 5 road wins before the calendar hits November.
Sure.
So as we move into the second half of the season, you got a lot of home games. I think they've got a 3-game homestand coming up with the Seahawks, Cardinals again, and then I think they have the Packers. So, I mean, this is a situation where it sets up pretty good for the 49ers. They've taken care of their business up until this point. Now they're starting to be in the conversation for teams that could potentially have a first-round bye when we get to January.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to piggyback off the schedule point. We are going to get the answer to this question before the playoffs begin. They have 4 of their final 8 games are against, if everyone agrees, the 4 best teams in the NFC in some order or another are Niners and then Saints, Packers, Seahawks. Half of their remaining games are against the Saints, Packers, Seahawks. So we will be able to find out how good they are against better defenses, against the types of teams they will face in the postseason. But up to last night, the only question mark to me, because we haven't even talked about Kyle Shanahan and what a brilliant offensive mind he continues to prove to be, the only question was, how good is their passing game going to be? And last night it was exceptional.
So as we sit here November 1st, are the San Francisco 49ers the best team in the NFC?
I'm still not ready to crown them as the best team in the NFC just because I trust what I've seen from the Saints and the Packers. But that's in part because I know what their quarterbacks are going to be.
So this is all about quarterback
from a week-in, week-out basis. Now, here's the other part about this. That 49ers defense didn't bring their A game last night. Now, I know it's a short week against a division opponent, but they came out and got punched in the mouth by that Cardinals offense on the first possession. And then you saw in the second half, Cliff Kingsbury used a little bit of tempo, standardized the defensive looks, didn't allow those guys to substitute and go to those exotic blitz packages. And that 49ers defense was reeling a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not teams around the NFL, other offenses, try to employ that strategy going up against that group, because that's one of the better front sevens, if not the best front seven in all of football.
But I do find it really interesting to see the continued progression of Emmanuel Sanders and what he adds to this offense. In his whole season in Denver, which was 5 games, he had 14 catches, 180 yards. In 2 games in 5 days with San Francisco, he's got 11 catches for $140. Like, he looks.
And there's a little Kyle Shanahan in that, too.
Oh, 100%. But it's also, no matter where you slot Jimmy Garoppolo, he's a hell of a lot better than the quarterback they had thrown to him in Denver and Joe Flacco. And for Emmanuel Sanders, for the first time since he had Peyton Manning throwing him the football, he has a legitimate NFL quarterback throwing him the football, and you're seeing him get back to, much quicker than I thought he could, the form of Emmanuel Sanders we're used to seeing.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.